Tired of toxic people draining your energy and hijacking your peace? What if one bold move, done just once, could make them back off for good? Stick around because I'm about to show you how! Setting clear boundaries with confidence is the cornerstone of keeping toxic people at bay. It's not just about drawing a line in the sand, it's about building a wall of self-respect that others can't easily cross. When you think about toxic people, those who manipulate, criticize, or drain your energy, you'll notice they thrive in environments where boundaries are fuzzy or non-existent. They exploit ambiguity, push limits, and test how far they can go. The antidote: a boundary so clear, so unwavering, that it stops them in their tracks. But it's not enough to just set a boundary. It's the confidence behind it that makes it stick. Confidence isn't loud or aggressive. It's calm, direct, and unshakable. It's the kind of energy that says, "This is who I am, and this is where I stand." Let's break it down. A boundary is a rule you set for yourself, not a demand you place on someone else. It's about what you will and won't tolerate, what you'll allow in your space, and how you choose to spend your time and energy. Toxic people often rely on you, not knowing where your limits are. They'll push, prod, and poke until they find a weak spot. Maybe it's a snide comment disguised as a joke, or maybe it's a guilt trip to get you to do something you don't want to do. Whatever the tactic, their goal is to make you bend. When you set a clear boundary, you're saying, "Not here, not with me." Imagine someone who constantly interrupts you, talks over you, or dismisses your ideas in a group setting. It's frustrating, right? You might let it slide once or twice, thinking it's not worth the confrontation. But each time you do, you're signaling that it's okay to disrespect you. Now, picture this instead: the next time they interrupt, you pause, look them in the eye, and say, "I wasn't finished speaking. I'll let you know when I'm done." Your tone isn't angry, it's steady. Your words aren't vague, they're precise. That's a boundary. You're not telling them what to do, you're stating what you expect in your interaction. The confidence comes from delivering that message without hesitation, without apology, and without backing down. Why does this work? Because toxic people feed on uncertainty. They're used to people who waffle, who second guess themselves, or who give in to keep the peace. When you show up with a clear boundary, backed by confidence, you disrupt their playbook. They're not expecting someone to stand their ground so firmly. It's like walking into a room expecting to push a door open, only to find it locked. They'll test it again, sure, but if that lock holds firm every time, they'll eventually move on to an easier target. Now, setting boundaries isn't always about saying something out loud. Sometimes it's in your actions. Let's say you have a friend who constantly calls to vent, unloading their drama without ever asking about your life. You feel drained after every conversation, but you pick up the phone out of guilt or habit. A boundary could be as simple as letting their call go to voicemail and responding later when you're ready, or not responding at all if the relationship feels one-sided. You're not being rude, you're choosing to protect your energy. The confidence lies in trusting that choice, in knowing you don't owe anyone your time just because they demand it. Here's the thing: toxic people will push back. They're not going to like your boundaries because boundaries limit their control. They might try to guilt you, saying things like, "You've changed," or "You're being too sensitive." They might double down on their behavior to test your resolve. This is where confidence becomes your anchor. You don't need to argue or justify your boundary. You don't need to convince them it's valid. You just need to hold it. If you say, "I'm not okay with being spoken to that way," and they try to argue, you don't engage in a debate. You restate your position or walk away. Every time you stand firm, you reinforce the boundary and you teach them how to treat you, or whether they get access to you at all. Let's talk about why confidence matters so much. Confidence isn't about feeling fearless or having all the answers. It's about trusting yourself enough to act even when it's uncomfortable. Toxic people are skilled at sniffing out insecurity. If you set a boundary but your voice shakes or you apologize right after, they'll see it as an opening. They'll think, oh, they don't really mean it. That's why you practice delivering your boundaries with clarity and calm. It's not about being perfect, it's about being consistent. Over time, that consistency builds a reputation. People start to know you as someone who doesn't tolerate nonsense, and toxic folks will think twice before targeting you. Think about a workplace scenario. Maybe you have a colleague who takes credit for your ideas or dumps their work on you. A clear boundary might be saying, I'm happy to collaborate, but I need to be acknowledged for my contributions. Or, I can't take on extra tasks right now, my plate is full. The confidence comes in how you say it, direct, professional, no room for misinterpretation. You're not asking for permission, you're stating a fact. If they push back, you don't get defensive. You repeat your boundary or redirect the conversation. Over time, they'll learn that you're not someone they can steamroll. One key to setting boundaries is knowing your values. What matters to you? Is it respect, honesty, your time? When you're clear on what you stand for, it's easier to decide what you won't tolerate. For example, if respect is non-negotiable for you, then you don't let someone belittle you, even if they claim it's just how they are. You don't need to change their behavior. That's on them. Your job is to decide what you'll accept in your life. This clarity makes it easier to set boundaries without second-guessing yourself. You're not being petty or selfish. You're honoring what you believe in. Another piece of this is preparation. Toxic people often catch you off guard, so it helps to have a few go-to phrases ready. Things like, that doesn't work for me, or I'm not comfortable with that, are simple, neutral, and hard to argue with. Practice saying them out loud, in front of a mirror if you have to, until they feel natural. The more comfortable you get with these phrases, the less likely you are to freeze when a toxic person tries to push your buttons. And when you deliver those words with confidence, head up, voice steady, they carry weight. It's also worth noting that boundaries aren't one size fits all. What works with a toxic coworker might not work with a family member. The principle stays the same, clarity and confidence, but the delivery might change. With a family member, you might need to be softer but still firm. I love spending time with you, but I need our conversations to stay respectful. The boundary is still clear, but it's tailored to the relationship. The confidence comes from knowing you're allowed to set that expectation, no matter who you're dealing with. One trap to avoid is over-explaining. When you set a boundary, keep it short. Toxic people love to latch onto explanations and turn them into debates. If you say, I can't talk right now, and they ask why, you don't owe them a detailed breakdown of your schedule. A simple, I'm just not available, is enough. Confidence means trusting that your boundary doesn't need a defense. You're not on trial, you're just living your life. Finally, setting boundaries with confidence is a skill, and like any skill, it gets easier with practice. Start small if you need to. Maybe it's saying no to a small request or politely redirecting a conversation. Each time you do it, you build a little more trust in yourself. You start to see that the world doesn't fall apart when you stand up for yourself. In fact, it often gets better. Non-toxic people will respect your boundaries, and toxic ones will either adapt or fade away. Either way, you're creating a life where you're in control, not them. Responding, not reacting, to toxic behavior is about staying in control of yourself when someone tries to pull you into their chaos. Toxic people thrive on emotional reactions, anger, frustration, or guilt because it gives them power. When you react, you're handing them the reins. Responding, on the other hand, means you pause, think, and choose your words or actions deliberately. It's like playing chess instead of checkers. You're strategic, not impulsive. This approach disarms toxic people because it denies them the emotional fuel they're fishing for. Picture this: someone makes a snarky comment to get under your skin. Your instinct might be to snap back or defend yourself. That's reacting. It's what they want. They've hooked you. Instead, imagine taking a breath and saying, "That's an interesting perspective," or "nothing at all." You're not ignoring them. You're choosing not to play their game. This takes practice because toxic people are good at pushing buttons. They might criticize you, twist your words, or play the victim to provoke you. The key is to slow down. Don't let their urgency or drama dictate your pace. Why does this work? Toxic behavior often relies on emotional escalation. They say something inflammatory, you get upset, they double down, and suddenly you're in a spiral where they're in control. By responding instead of reacting, you break that cycle. You're not giving them the outrage or hurt they expect. Instead, you're showing them you're steady, which can be unnerving for them. They're used to people crumbling or fighting back, so when you stay calm and deliberate, it throws them off balance. It's like refusing to dance when they're trying to lead. Let's say a coworker constantly undermines you in meetings, dropping subtle jabs about your work. A reaction might be calling them out in front of everyone, which could escalate into a public argument. Exactly what they want, because it makes you look emotional or unprofessional. A response might be waiting until after the meeting, pulling them aside and saying, "I've noticed your comments about my work. If you have feedback, I'm open to hearing it privately." Your tone is calm, your words are direct, and you're not feeding their need for drama. You've addressed the behavior without giving them the emotional payoff they were after. This doesn't mean suppressing your feelings. You're allowed to be angry or hurt. Those emotions are valid. But you don't have to express them in the moment, especially if it plays into the toxic person's hands. Take a moment to process. Step away if you need to. Write down what you're feeling to get clarity. Then decide how you want to respond. Maybe it's a conversation, maybe it's setting a boundary, or maybe it's choosing not to engage at all. The point is, you're in the driver's seat, not them. One way to get better at this is to anticipate their tactics. Toxic people tend to follow patterns. Maybe they guilt trip you every time you say no, or they use sarcasm to mask insults. Once you recognize their playbook, you can prepare. For example, if you know your relative always brings up a past mistake to shame you, plan your response ahead of time. Something like, "I'm focused on the present, so let's talk about something else." You're not reacting to their bait, you're redirecting the conversation on your terms. Timing is also critical. Toxic people often strike when you're stressed or distracted, hoping to catch you off guard. If you're not in a place to respond thoughtfully, it's okay to delay. Say, "I'll get back to you on that," and give yourself time to think. This isn't avoidance, it's strategic. You're choosing when and how to engage, which keeps you in control. Over time, they'll learn that their usual tricks don't work on you. Another part of responding is keeping your emotions separate from their behavior. Toxic people often project their issues onto you, making you feel like you're the problem. If they're angry, they might try to make you feel responsible for their mood. If they're insecure, they might criticize you to feel better about themselves. Recognizing this helps you stay grounded. Their behavior is about them, not you. When you internalize this, it's easier to respond with clarity instead of reacting out of hurt or defensiveness. Body language matters too. Toxic people read your nonverbal cues. If you're fidgeting or avoiding eye contact, they might sense weakness and push harder. Stand tall, keep your voice steady, and maintain eye contact when appropriate. These small signals reinforce that you're not rattled, even if you feel unsettled inside. It's not about faking it, it's about projecting the control you're working to maintain. Sometimes, the best response is no response at all. Silence can be powerful. If someone's trying to provoke you with a nasty text or a passive-aggressive comment, not replying can send a message louder than words. It says, "I'm not engaging with this." But silence only works if it's intentional, not out of fear or indecision. You're choosing not to fuel their fire, and that choice is rooted in strength. Responding instead of reacting also means knowing when to walk away. Not every situation needs a comeback or a confrontation. If someone's behavior is consistently toxic and they're not open to change, your response might be to limit contact. This isn't giving up, it's prioritizing your peace. For example, if a friend constantly disrespects your time by showing up late or canceling plans last minute, you might respond by not inviting them to future outings. You don't need to lecture them. Just make choices that reflect your standards. It's worth noting that responding thoughtfully doesn't mean being a doormat. You can be kind and still be firm. You can be polite and still say no. The goal isn't to avoid conflict altogether. It's to handle it in a way that preserves your dignity and keeps the toxic person from derailing you. If they escalate, don't match their energy. Stay calm and restate your position. If they yell, you don't yell back. If they manipulate, you don't get sucked into their story. You hold your ground, and that's what makes them realize they can't control you. Practice is key. Responding instead of reacting feels unnatural at first, especially if you're used to being pushed around. Start with low-stakes situations. Maybe it's a stranger who cuts you off in traffic. Instead of honking or fuming, take a deep breath and let it go. Or maybe it's a colleague who makes a snide remark. Try a neutral response like, "I hear you," and move on. These small moments build your ability to stay composed when the stakes are higher. Over time, this approach rewires how you deal with toxic people. They start to see you as someone who doesn't take the bait. They might try harder at first, testing your resolve, but when you consistently respond with calm and clarity, they'll often back off. Why? Because they're looking for easy targets, and you're no longer one. You're not feeding their need for drama, and that makes you less appealing to mess with. This also has a ripple effect. When you respond thoughtfully, you model healthy behavior for others. People around you, friends, family, coworkers, start to notice how you handle toxic interactions with grace and strength. It can inspire them to do the same. Plus, it reinforces your own self-respect. Every time you choose to respond instead of react, you're reminding yourself that you're in charge of your emotions and your life. Ultimately, responding over reacting is about reclaiming your power. Toxic people want to pull you into their chaos, but when you pause, think, and choose your move, you're showing them and yourself that you're untouchable. It's not about winning a fight, it's about refusing to play a game that's rigged against you. Protecting your energy by limiting engagement with toxic people is about recognizing that your time, attention, and emotional reserves are finite resources. Toxic individuals often thrive on pulling you into their drama, feeding off your reactions, or draining you with their negativity. By consciously choosing when and how to engage, or whether to engage at all, you preserve your mental and emotional well-being. This isn't about building walls to shut everyone out. It's about being selective with who gets access to you and how much of yourself you give away. Think of your energy like a bank account. Every interaction, especially with toxic people, is a withdrawal. Some withdrawals are small, a passing comment you shrug off. Others are massive, like an hour long argument, or a guilt trip that leaves you ruminating for days. The goal is to minimize those big withdrawals by limiting how much you let toxic people take from you. This could mean reducing contact, keeping conversations short, or steering clear of topics that lead to conflict. It's not avoidance out of fear. It's a deliberate choice to prioritize your peace. Consider someone who constantly complains, dumping their problems on you without ever taking responsibility. Every conversation feels like a vortex, pulling you into their negativity. Protecting your energy might mean setting a time limit for those talks. Say, 10 minutes before you politely excuse yourself. Or it could mean redirecting the conversation to neutral ground. I hear you. But let's talk about something else for a bit. You're not cutting them off harshly. You're managing the interaction to avoid being drained. This approach works because toxic people often rely on your availability. They expect you to be there, to listen, to react, to fix their problems. When you limit engagement, you disrupt that expectation. You're sending a signal your energy isn't an open buffet. They might push harder at first, testing if you'll cave, but when you consistently limit how much you give, they'll often move on to someone who's easier to drain. It's not personal, it's just how they operate. Let's say you have a family member who loves to stir up drama at gatherings, picking fights or bringing up old grudges. Engaging with them, arguing, defending yourself, or trying to reason only fuels the fire. Instead, you might choose to limit engagement by keeping your interactions brief and surface level. Smile, exchange pleasantries, and excuse yourself to talk to someone else. If they try to pull you into an argument, you might say, I'm not getting into that today, and walk away. The key is doing this without guilt. You're not responsible for their emotions or their need for conflict. Technology can be a tool here. If someone bombards you with toxic texts or calls, you don't have to respond immediately or at all. Mute their notifications. Set your phone to do not disturb or block them if the situation calls for it. This isn't petty, it's practical. You're creating space to focus on what matters to you, whether that's work, hobbies, or relationships that actually uplift you. If you do respond, keep it short and neutral. Got your message? I'll let you know when I'm free. You're not ghosting them. You're controlling the terms of engagement. Another way to limit engagement is by managing your environment. If you know a certain person's presence is toxic, say, a coworker who gossips or undermines you, position yourself to avoid unnecessary interactions. Sit somewhere else in meetings. Keep your door closed if you have an office, or wear headphones to signal you're focused. These small adjustments reduce opportunities for toxic behavior to affect you. It's like putting up a no soliciting sign. You're not banning them from your life, just making it harder for them to barge in. One challenge is the pressure to be nice or keep the peace. Society often teaches us that limiting engagement is rude or selfish, especially with family or close friends. But protecting your energy isn't about being unkind, it's about self-preservation. You can still be polite while keeping distance. For example, if a friend keeps crossing lines with passive-aggressive comments, you might say, I care about our friendship, but I need to step back from these kinds of conversations. You're being clear without being cruel, and you're giving them a chance to adjust if they choose to. It's also about knowing your triggers. Toxic people are often skilled at finding what sets you off. Maybe it's a certain topic, like your career choices or personal life, that they always poke at. Once you identify those triggers, you can plan how to limit engagement around them. If your sibling always criticizes your parenting, don't take the bait. Change the subject or say, I'm not discussing that. If they persist, physically remove yourself from the conversation. You're not running away. You're choosing not to waste your energy on a losing battle. Limiting engagement doesn't always mean cutting someone out entirely, though sometimes it does. If a relationship is consistently toxic and shows no signs of improving, reducing contact to the bare minimum or going no contact might be the healthiest choice. This could look like seeing a toxic relative only at major family events instead of weekly dinners, or unfollowing a friend on social media whose posts constantly upset you. The degree of distance depends on the situation, but the principle is the same: less exposure, less drain. This approach also frees up energy for the people and things that matter. When you're not bogged down by toxic interactions, you have more to give to relationships that are mutual, supportive, and fulfilling. It's like clearing clutter from your house. Suddenly, there's space for what actually brings you joy. Maybe you spend that energy on a hobby, a project, or just relaxing without the weight of someone else's negativity. Protecting your energy isn't just about saying no to toxic people, it's about saying yes to yourself. One practical tip is to track how you feel after interactions. If you leave a conversation feeling exhausted, anxious, or angry, that's a sign you need to limit engagement with that person. On the flip side, if you feel energized or uplifted, that's someone worth investing in. This awareness helps you make intentional choices about who gets your time. It's not about keeping score, it's about noticing patterns so you can act accordingly. Sometimes limiting engagement means redefining the relationship entirely. If a friend only reaches out when they need something, you might decide to treat them like an acquaintance rather than a close confidant. You can still be friendly, but you don't share personal details or make yourself available 24/7. This shift protects your energy while maintaining basic civility. It's not about holding a grudge. It's about aligning the relationship with what feels sustainable for you. The beauty of this strategy is that it's proactive. You're not waiting for the toxic person to change. They probably won't. You're not hoping they'll respect your boundaries. They might not. You're taking control by deciding how much of yourself you're willing to share. Over time, this creates a shield around your energy. Toxic people might still try to get a rise out of you, but when they see you're not giving them the access they want, they often lose interest. They'll move on to someone who's easier to manipulate or drain. This also builds resilience. Each time you choose to limit engagement, you're reinforcing your own worth. You're reminding yourself that your energy is valuable, and you get to decide who has access to it. That's empowering. It shifts the dynamic from you being at the mercy of their behavior to you being in charge of your own experience. Toxic people might not like it, but they'll learn that you're not an endless well for their negativity. Staying consistent to reinforce your stance is the glue that makes your boundaries, responses, and energy protection stick when dealing with toxic people. Consistency isn't just about repeating the same words or actions. It's about showing through your behavior that your standards are non-negotiable. Toxic individuals often test limits, looking for cracks in your resolve. If you waver, enforcing a boundary one day, but letting it slide the next, they'll seize the opportunity to push harder. By staying steady, you send a clear message: your rules aren't up for debate, and their tactics won't sway you. Imagine you've told a friend you won't tolerate last-minute cancellations anymore because they've flaked on plans repeatedly, leaving you frustrated. You set a boundary: if you cancel again without a good reason, I won't make plans with you for a while. The first time they cancel, you follow through and don't reschedule. If you're consistent, they'll see you mean business. But if you let it slide the next time, saying, "Oh, it's fine," you've just taught them your boundary is flexible. Consistency means sticking to your word, even when it's inconvenient or feels awkward. This works because toxic people thrive on inconsistency. They bank on you getting tired, giving in, or second guessing yourself. Maybe they'll wait a few weeks and try the same old tricks, hoping you've softened. If you hold firm, say, by calmly restating your boundary or limiting contact as promised, they start to realize their usual strategies don't work. It's like training a dog not to jump on the furniture. If you're inconsistent, they'll keep jumping. But if you're firm every time, they eventually stop trying. Let's take a workplace example. Suppose a colleague keeps interrupting you during meetings, undermining your ideas. You've set a boundary. I'd appreciate it if you let me finish my thoughts before jumping in. The first time they interrupt again, you pause, look at them, and say, I'm not done yet. If they do it again the next meeting, you repeat the same response, same tone, same clarity. You don't snap or ignore it. You consistently reinforce your stance. Over time, they'll either adjust or find someone else to interrupt because you've made it clear you're not an easy target. Consistency also applies to how you manage your energy. If you've decided to limit engagement with a toxic relative by only seeing them at major family events, don't suddenly agree to a one-on-one lunch just because they guilt trip you. That's where they'll try to wear you down, saying things like, you never make time for me, hold your ground. Politely decline, I'm sticking to family gatherings for now, but I'll see you at the next one. Each time you stay consistent, you reinforce that your decision isn't a whim, it's a commitment to your well-being. One challenge is the emotional tug. Toxic people are often skilled at manipulating feelings, making you doubt your stance. They might play the victim, act hurt, or even shower you with kindness to throw you off. This is where consistency becomes your shield. You don't have to be cold or harsh, just steady. If you've decided not to engage in arguments with a manipulative coworker, don't take the bait when they try to provoke you with a backhanded compliment. Respond the same way every time, I'm not getting into that, or simply change the subject. Your predictability becomes your strength. It's also about aligning your actions with your words. If you say you won't tolerate disrespectful comments, but then laugh off an insult to avoid conflict, you're sending mixed signals. Toxic people notice this. They'll push harder, thinking they can erode your boundaries. Instead, if someone makes a rude remark, you might say, that's not okay with me, and leave it there. Do this every time, and they'll learn that disrespect doesn't get a pass. Your consistency trains them to expect the same outcome, reducing their incentive to test you. Another aspect is timing. Toxic people often strike when you're vulnerable, stressed, tired, or distracted, hoping you'll slip. Consistency means holding your stance even in those moments. If you're too drained to respond thoughtfully, it's okay to delay. I'll address this later. Then follow through when you're ready, sticking to the same boundary or response you've established. This shows them your stance isn't mood dependent, it's a fixed part of who you are. Practice makes this easier. Consistency doesn't mean you're perfect. It means you keep showing up the same way. If you slip up and react emotionally to a toxic person's jab, don't beat yourself up. Acknowledge it, reset, and return to your stance. Maybe you got pulled into an argument with a sibling who knows how to push your buttons. Afterward, reflect on what triggered you, then recommit to your boundary. I'm not engaging in these fights anymore. Next time they try, you're ready to respond calmly or walk away. Each consistent choice builds your confidence and their awareness that you're serious. It's also worth noting that consistency isn't about being rigid or unkind. You can be flexible in how you communicate while still holding firm on your core stance. For example, if a friend keeps overstepping with unsolicited advice, you might vary how you address it. I appreciate your concern, but I've got this, or I'm not looking for input on that right now. But the message stays the same, you're not open to their interference. The consistency lies in the boundary itself, not the exact words. This approach also protects you from gaslighting. Toxic people often try to make you doubt your reality, saying things like, "You're overreacting," or "I didn't mean it that way." If you're consistent in your stance, say, refusing to tolerate belittling comments, you're less likely to fall into their trap. You know where you stand, and their attempts to rewrite the narrative don't shake you. It's like having a compass. No matter how they spin things, you stay oriented. Consistency also has a cumulative effect. Each time you reinforce your stance, you're not just dealing with that moment, you're building a reputation. Toxic people start to see you as someone who doesn't budge. This can deter them from targeting you in the first place. Think of it like a shop with a "no loitering" sign that's always enforced. People stop hanging around. If you're known for holding your ground, toxic individuals will look for easier marks. This doesn't mean they'll disappear overnight. Some will test you repeatedly, hoping you'll crack. That's why consistency is a long game. It's not about one dramatic standoff. It's about small, steady actions over time. Maybe it's saying no to a toxic person's demands once a week, or calmly redirecting their negativity every time it pops up. Each act of consistency chips away at their ability to manipulate you until they either change their behavior or move on. Ultimately, staying consistent is about trusting yourself. It's knowing that your boundaries, your responses, and your energy are worth protecting. Toxic people want you to doubt that, to think you're being too harsh, too sensitive, or too rigid. But when you show up the same way, time after time, you're proving to yourself and to them that your stance is solid. It's not about control or punishment. It's about living in alignment with your values, no matter who's trying to pull you off course.